Welcome to Darling Cyber Cafe, your digital information for coffee aficionados. In an age where data is currency and every click could be a threat, knowledge is your greatest defense. I'm your host, Darling Gresson Jr., and this is the podcast where we illuminate the dark corners of our digital world. Join us as we navigate the ever-changing currents of cybersecurity news, IT security, and the latest in the cyber landscape. Whether you're a seasoned IT professional, a business executive, or just curious about the forces shaping our digital future, Darling Cyber Cafe is your digital coffee house guiding you through the noise. I'm here to break down the headlines, decode the jargon, and deliver actionable insights to protect your data, your business, and your peace of mind. So, fasten your digital seatbelts and prepare to embark on a journey through the ever-shifting world of cyber threats, news, and IT securities. Darling Cyber Cafe, your digital information haven for coffee aficionados, starts now. Episode 80. The Carrington Event versus Technology Today. On October 3rd, 2024, the Sun blasted an X9 solar flare, a CME, a coronal mass ejection, is headed toward Earth. As these events are not uncommon, the higher X-class flares are something to think about. So if these events are so common, then why am I talking about it? Will this just be nothing, or should we be concerned? This podcast dives into what one of these events would affect everything technological, and I will discuss about the Carrington event, which in the eyes of the 2024 sense would be a little more catastrophic than in 1859. The Carrington event. The Carrington event refers to an actual event back in 1859, which was the most powerful recorded solar storm. It was an extraordinary event that demonstrated the massive power of space weather and serves as a warning of what could happen if a similar storm were to hit Earth today. So on the morning of September 1st, 1859, British astronomer Richard Carrington was observing sunspots through his telescope. Sunspots are cooler, darker areas on the sun's surface, often associated with solar activity. As Carrington observed, something remarkable happened. He witnessed a sudden, intense burst of white light erupting from the sun's surface. This is what we now know as a solar flare, but at the time, it was an unprecedented sight. Carrington recorded the event unaware that this flare had just unleashed a massive cloud of charged particles and electromagnetic energy into space. A coronal mass ejection, CME. This was aimed directly at Earth. Just 17 hours later, on September 2nd, 1859, the solar storm slammed into the Earth's magnetic field, sparking a geomagnetic storm of unimaginable intensity. The impact was felt all over the world. Auroras, the northern and southern lights that you see, the green things in the sky, they were brilliant. They were typically seen more in the polar regions, but it appeared as so far south as in Havana, Cuba, and Hawaii in the northern hemisphere, and in the southern hemisphere, they were visible from places like Chile and Australia. These auroras were so bright that people could read newspapers outside at night. Telegraph systems disrupted. Now, the most significant technological system of the time, the telegraph network, was severely affected. Telegraph lines across North America and Europe experienced electrical surges so intense that operators were literally shocked. Telegraph paper caught fire, and some systems continued to work even after being unplugged from their power sources due to the extreme currents induced by the geomagnetic storm. Now, at the time, there was no power grid, no satellites, no radio, or any of the advanced technology that we rely on today. The primary technology affected was the telegraph, but the effects on that system were startling. Telegraph operators noted that their machines were working on auroral power alone, meaning that the electricity from the solar storm was so powerful enough to operate these devices without batteries. Messages were sent between cities even though they had no electrical power source. So this begs the question, in modern times, the Carrington event is classified on a sliding scale of an X class. So what? How would this affect us in the modern sense? Or I'm just trying to scare you because we're near Halloween. So today, a similar event would wreak havoc on our heavily tech-dependent society. The Carrington Event serves as a reminder that the sun's activity can have devastating effects on Earth. If a solar storm of this magnitude were to hit now, it could knock out satellites, power grids, and our communication systems, causing trillions upon trillions of dollars in damage and potentially taking years to fully recover. Solar storms of this intensity are extremely rare, but they do happen. A smaller but still significant storm occurred in 1989. This caused a 9-hour blackout in Quebec, Canada, and damaging satellites. The Carrington Event remains the benchmark of what a truly extreme solar storm could do. So now I'm going to talk about how it could affect in our today's standards, things that would be affected very briefly. So obviously satellites and space-based systems, communications such as TV, GPS, and global telecommunications, weather and Earth observation satellites, and any astronauts that are currently residing in the International Space Station or other space stations that are out there at the time. Electrical grids, power grid failures. The intensity can overload the transformers, the distribution transformers, leading to power grid surges and widespread blackouts. Recovery can take weeks or months. Keep in mind that these transformers are purchased out of country in a specific country that could take many years to receive any stock. Prolonged blackouts would have effects on transportation, healthcare systems, and the economy. Telecommunications, internet and cellular networks, obviously, so nothing would work if you're trying to use your cell phone or access the internet. And also radio communications. Long-distance radio communication equipment will be affected due to the interference of the Earth's ionosphere. More on that later. Financial systems, banking and digital transactions. Now understand that today's banking system relies heavily on internet and satellite communications. Financial markets will experience significant disruption. Transport systems, things such as traffic lights, rail systems will be down due to lack of electricity and GPS systems, and also for any radio communications as well. Self-driving vehicles. Now, they rely heavily on GPS and internet communication technologies, and obviously they would be disabled completely. I'm not going to get too deep into this one because I know all of you saying, Tesla and all these self-driving companies that are going to be problematic. Yes, but we're not talking about that right now, and I don't want to get too deep into that conspiracy and all that dogma that comes with people who are a little bit uncomfortable with the self-driving vehicles, but more on another podcast later on. Now, basically everything and anything electronic will be disabled without the knowledge of it being restored. So how do we protect against such an event? I got both good news and bad news. Now, the first obvious solution is to harden our electrical infrastructure. This means protecting the big transformers that are extremely expensive and difficult to manufacture. Now, especially that most of these are supplied from China, and we do not keep stockpiles of these things. One idea is to protect them with a Faraday cage or design transformers capable of withstanding a geomagnetic current. So basically what I mean is with Faraday cages is that you can encapsulate these transformers so that in the event of a geomagnetic storm like a Carrington event, it will completely bypass the transformer and help mitigate it getting completely decimated when there's overcurrent in the transformers. Keep in mind too, like I said, it also is supplied from other countries such as China. So think about it. If the whole world goes dark tomorrow, do you think China is going to manufacture, or if they have the capability, first of all, to manufacture these things? And I know from dealing with certain electrical providers in Canada is that they don't stockpile these things, and they don't really have a significant plan in place yet for these sort of geomagnetic issues. This also could, the CME event can also happen with a nuclear detonation in the ionosphere as well, could create similar effects on our electrical infrastructure, or any electrical infrastructure by that matter. So It's very important to keep note of this. I know it's not much that you and I can do, but that's something you may be a bit more vocal about to your governments to make sure that they have backup transformers or backup plans in place to protect such an event from occurring. Also, you can use redundant power sources such as gas or diesel generators or propane generators, utilizing microgrids, using renewable sources such as solar, wind, tide, geothermal. This is basically to provide a decentralized power and reduce dependency on the main grid. So most grids are comprised of one big generating plant, and it kind of goes out to the masses. This would basically mean that you would create mini grids that you could disconnect from the main grid and be able to power your home's infrastructures without having to provide the entire grid, because many micro grid power stations cannot power many homes, as I'm sure most of us are aware. But just saying, is the big plants that are meant to supply power to millions of people, when they go down, you can use these microgrids to do that. And there is an easy and hard way of doing this. I'm not an electrical engineer, but I know from talking to different people that this is a possibility. Next one is communication redundancies. Ground-based communications, such as fiber optics, that don't rely on satellites, can mitigate some satellite and wireless outages. So basically, a lot of these communication satellites, these communication towers, are connected either using copper or being used with satellites. So if any of these technologies are burnt out or no longer operational, fiber optic uses light pulses, which is not electromagnetic. So the fiber optic cables will not be affected by a geomagnetic storm to this extent. So by running fiber optics in the ground or under the sea, you eliminate the need for satellites. You eliminate the need for wireless communications, which could cause a significant detriment if they were to be rendered useless. Backup communications, analog systems for aviation, military, and emergency services is crucial. I will say this as a amateur radio operator myself. I fully understand the importance during these outages. Even during some geomagnetic storms, not big ones, there are some outages in certain amateur ham bands. And that's something we notice is if there is a geomagnetic storm, we do feel the effects. We're not able to use certain bands. They may go offline due to the amount of solar noise in the ionosphere. And for those who don't know what that is basically some high frequency radio operators use a specific band to the ionosphere. So I could communicate from anyone between North America to Europe by bouncing the signals off of the ionosphere. So if that particular ham band is dead due to the solar storm, I won't be able to communicate far distance. I'll only be able to communicate close distance. But having these analog systems, you'll be able to communicate through different airplanes or boats, stuff like that, with a certain distance if that particular band isn't rendered useless during a Carrington event, for example. And lastly, awareness and preparedness. Educating the public and conducting emergency drills. This, I would think, would be more of educating the public for those who may not know the issues with a Carrington event in our technology. This is the first step in the right direction. The second step is to just be prepared. Just think about if everything goes dead tomorrow. Do you have enough supplies? Do you have enough water or food to get by the 72 hours, as they like to say? But I would always say 2 weeks. So get about 14 days worth of supplies to keep you through until the grid comes back on, if it does. So does this mean we're prepared or not? Is there really a way to prepare for this? Because this seems like it's kind of out of scope for most of us. Like I said, the bad news is that there is nothing that is written in stone that will confirm another Carrington event, which is a class 45 flare, will happen in our lifetime. This does not mean we have to remain ignorant and not think about protecting ourselves from an event like this. Yes, like I said, this is also your local government's concern too, but understand to prepare is an additional cost. for everybody. Now, remember, as I highlighted earlier, this isn't something that you can predict. And given how advanced we've become since 1859, in the 165 years that has passed, we have made significant leaps and bounds in technological advancements and will continue to do so for many years from now. But given of how our computing technology is today, as we use things such as little mini transistors in our silicon chips, would be greatly affected by a geomagnetic storm like a Carrington event, and it will fry all of our sensitive technologies. So this is why it's very important. And always having this as a precaution by designing our electrical grid and technology to resist a geomagnetic storm of any caliber will make us sleep well at night. And once an actual Carrington event does occur, our technology and society would be able to mitigate or essentially sidestep the disastrous effects that will affect that this event will have on our society today. Now, understand, the Carrington event was a wake-up call. Even though it happened 165 years ago and way before our current digital age, our increasing reliance on technology, understanding and preparing for solar storms is more critical than ever. Today, scientists monitor the sun closely for signs of increased solar activity and try to predict when the next Carrington scale event might occur. And they can do this by giving advance warning. So many of the electrical operators can prepare by either shutting down the grid, forcing a blackout, unplugging devices, etc. There's ways to mitigate the effect of this scale on our power infrastructure. So hopefully in time, we will have enough advanced knowledge where we can sort of hunker down and protect our infrastructure from a disastrous event like this. The Carrington event legacy is a reminder that while we are constantly advancing in technology, the forces of nature, particularly those coming from space, remain beyond our control. Thanks for listening to this episode of Darling Cyber Cafe. Be sure to subscribe and stay tuned for our weekly episode releases. Because in the world of cybersecurity, knowledge is power. Oh, while you're still here, don't forget, there are no strangers here. Next time you come back to the cafe, bring a friend. I'll see you soon. Cheers.